Virginity. What is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made-up concept. It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women. A virgin is someone who's never had sex, but it's not as simple as it seems. For one thing, medically, virginity isn't a real thing. In some cultures, people place a lot of importance on the hymen, a thin, fleshy tissue located at the opening of your vagina, as a marker of virginity. But the status of your hymen doesn't actually mean anything. That's because having penis and vagina sex is not the only way a hymen can stretch open. It can happen by putting something in your vagina like a tampon or a finger, riding a bike, or doing sports. So you can't tell if someone's had sex by the way their hymen looks or feels. Another reason the idea of virginity is complete nonsense is that sex means different things to different people. Generally speaking, society tends to define sex in a very narrow way: penetration, penis into vagina. But where does that definition leave queer people, or folks who can't or don't have penis and vagina sex, and choose to have oral, anal, or another type of sex instead? And not everyone's first sexual experience is consensual, meaning that they were forced or pressured into having sex. There is also a double standard on who carries the burden of virginity. Society puts pressure on men for not having sex at the exact same time they shame women for having it. Make it make sense. Either way, shame has no place in someone's personal decisions about sex. It's time to throw away the notion of losing your virginity. What if instead of losing something, we reframe it as gaining? Because the truth is, when we make our own decision to become sexually active, we aren't setting ourselves up to lose anything at all. We hope we are gaining things like intimacy, self-insight, pleasure, and empowerment. All of these myths around sex and virginity can be so hurtful and overwhelming. But here's the one truth you should remember. Sex is defined by one thing and one thing only: you. Maybe that's being fingered for the first time. Maybe it's having anal sex. Maybe it's having your first orgasm. Maybe it's masturbating for the first time, or when you enthusiastically consent to sex. That's the beauty of your sexual journey. You're in charge, and you can figure it out on your own terms. Choosing to have sex, when, what kind, where, who with, is something that only you get to define.
I don't know about her, and all the smoke ain't for her, but half of it is because she was the face of it and she agreed to do it. But the the Planned Parenthood. But so I've worked with teens. I work with sexually active teens, like all the time. So what does she tell the 16-year-old girl that's having sex with the 24-year-old? What does she tell her? What does she tell the 16-year-old who loses her virginity to the 24-year-old? That's what I want to know. Because those are things that I witnessed in my time working with the teens in my city. What do you tell the middle schoolers who are getting a train ran on them on the school bus on the way to school? These are things that I've, heard. I didn't witness that, but I've heard about stories that I've heard of teens, middle schoolers that I was working with during my time. Now, what do you tell the young girl who gets pregnant at 11 and have twins at 12? What do you tell her about the virginity? What do you tell all the hypersexual teens who are riddled with STDs?
Well, that's what they gain, Joe. That's what she tells them.
Because it's very irresponsible. I remember like a syphilis outbreak that happened at one of the schools. Girls sharing lip gloss. I remember a young girl giving everybody in her home gonorrhea, and her mother got gonorrhea in the eye because they were sharing eyelashes, and you can use your imagination on how the gonorrhea got on the eyelash that the young girl was wearing. And when the mother put the eyelash on, she got gonorrhea and gave the whole house gonorrhea. I could be here all day. Matter. Look, we've told two 17-year-olds and an 18-year-old within the last 6 months that they were HIV positive. So what do you say to that?
You say that's what they gained. They gained HIV. They gained kids. They gained gonorrhea in the eye. They gained syphilis. That's what they gained.
Because that's what makes this message so irresponsible. Is
Well,
you just putting it out.
I don't know if it's irresponsible. I think it's purposeful. I think you think about
use all them words.
like you think about all the ways we got here. This has been a message that's been perpetuated through especially to young people, and I'm talking about teens and preteens. You can look at snippets of messages like this from watching the Nickelodeon network, the Disney Channel, all the channels that were dedicated to children. The Cartoon Channel turned into Cartoon after dark or whatever. It's like the children are always going to be targeted by nefarious propaganda or cabal of people who are looking to damage the potential competition for the future. And we might look at it from that perspective. They might be looking to sabotage it, or we just might be dealing with some really heinous and sick individuals in some really high places that are looking to tamper with the with the rooting of these young people, because look at this message was geared to children. This looked like a Saturday morning cartoon program.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I got a question for her though. Which specific cultures were you talking about that focuses on the hymen, as far as saying that when this is broken, that the person is no longer a virgin? Which specific culture? Because you slip that in there. Some cultures, no. Which specific cultures are you talking about that focus on the hymen being whether or not a person is a virgin? Because that's how the message was put out, that some specific cultures. Some cultures. Don't tell us that. Tell us the cultures. Tell us the exact cultures that you're talking about. Because there are millions and millions of cultures around the world. So which ones you talking about? That's what I want to know. And see, we ask them questions. We have to ask questions. We have to have pushback. We have to be devil advocates and all these things. She's talking about virginity she basically framed virginity as something that was given to us by the patriarchal structure. So people continue to look at the world through a biblical timeline, not understanding that the world is older than what the Bible says. So when we're talking about the concept, because take away the word virginity, just use the word purity. We talk about the concept of purity. Cultures around the world throughout time have always valued purity, especially in women. But purity, period. It wasn't like this. The West, the hedonistic cultures are the ones who push the people to have sex, even pushing the men to go out and have a whole bunch of sex. All cultures aren't created the same, so you can't just mash stuff up and deliver the information like, hey, the whole world thinks through a patriarchal Western lens. No, they don't. All of time thought through a patriarchal Western lens. No, it didn't. And this video wasn't long enough for you to teach anybody anything. All it was a little drop in the bucket to pique somebody's interest to maybe go get fingered, because you talking about getting fingered and all that stuff. Then it ain't no context to it. You talking about, you can't just throw out anal sex like that and tell people and talk about having anal sex without putting context and putting the safety measures around sex, period, but specifically anal sex, because the anus was not made to be penetrated.
Well, no, Joe, you're wrong. If you choose to have your anus penetrated, then that is exactly what it was put on you to do.
All right, whatever. Yeah, and if you choose to walk out in front of the street in the street in front of cars while they're moving, hey, they're not gonna hit you because that's what you want. They're not gonna hit you. So since you don't want them to hit you, they're not gonna hit you.
Well, I think that goes into a little bit of what PC was saying about the goal, right? Like, because you think about it, right? Like, I do think I was slow to get on board this boat. I will openly admit that I was real slow to get on board. The Planned Parenthood is out to get us trained. I didn't disagree with it. I didn't have enough information. I didn't know enough. So I was just like, well, shit, let me just check. And so I'm saying this, speaking to everybody else that is like me, that's slow to get on board certain trains. How else do you categorize an organization that's willing to put out a video like this?
Mm.
like, you know, like, just even if you know nothing else about the organization, watching this video and thinking about it, like, and that's critical. And I'm assuming since you're slow to get on board, you're somebody that likes to think about things, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you put this video into any sort of non-malicious frame? Like, I'm struggling. Even now, I'm trying to do it. I've been trying to do it since Joe shared it. Because when you shared it, I thought it was just on some BS. Like, hey, man, look at this. So I watched it because, you know, I like to watch the videos cold when we do the reactions. And I watched it and I was like, wait a minute. I done spent the rest of my time since watching it trying to figure out how you can frame this in a non-malicious way. I have yet to come up with any reasonable, rational way to make this not be an extremely dangerous video with clear intentions on fucking up a group of people.
Well, it's like giving a presentation the other night, right? And same old argument from some young women. Well, why can't we go out and just have a whole bunch of sex like men and not be shamed for it? Because we just want to go out and just have a whole bunch of sex. You know, I want people to understand this clear right here. Nobody's telling you, well, we not, I don't know about other folks. We not telling you that you can and can't have sex. If you want to go have sex with 5 people today, that's your business. If you want to have sex with 20 different people a week, male or female, whoever you are, that's your business. But don't be mad at the consequences that you get for that. Consequences that are going to come from that are going to be good and bad. Because the good consequences that are going to come from it, you're going to ignore. You're going to accept. You're not even going to consider them consequences. You're going to consider them rewards. But guess what? Any negative, anything that makes you feel uncomfortable or doesn't make you feel good, because, okay, you're the person, male or female, who goes out and you have a whole bunch of sex and you meet somebody and they actually have some standards about themselves. And you say, well, I didn't have sex with all these people. And they looking at you like, well, nah, you ain't my type. You can't get mad. You can't get mad. You can choose to get mad, but you're dumb for getting mad, because guess what? Nobody's stopping you from doing what you want to do. Just like nobody gonna stop me from making the decision that I want to make that's best for me. That's where shame comes in. Shame keeps us from making decisions that will probably affect us long term down the road. Like, you can't just instruct a group of young people to go out and just have sex and just say, well, it's no big deal in losing your virginity. Yes, it is. Like the same thing from the other night. Like, well, we'll talk about pair bonding. Pat, go ahead and get into pair bonding, man. That's your thing.
I'm stuck still on how you gonna shame me for not liking the decision you made. But okay.
I'm not arguing with nobody about that. See,
no.
I'm not saying you are, but I'm just saying
I'm talking about the video. Like,
right. Look,
PC, you trying to jump in? I know, Joe, you said pair bonding. PC, you trying to jump? Oh, PC's muted.
Yeah.
It leads to serial monogamy, and that's why because once
And you talking about pair bonding, correct?
right. Like, and this works more so for women than men. I know women don't like this because of this whole concept around equality and so forth, but
It's
um,
biological.
biologically speaking, those chemicals kick in, and those chemicals kick in, typically speaking, based in either when you're having children or you're having a really strong orgasm, which sort of draws you closer to the person that helped you experience that orgasm. But if you're getting bombed out every other weekend and you're experiencing, it's like uh, a nuclear explosion. You watch that and you say, "Wow, I'm all inspired." But if you see one of them shits every 2 weeks, after a while, it loses its pizzazz. And that's the same thing that happens when you get into those situations. And women typically say they leave situations because they get bored with the men. And so you get bored with the men because that man has to, do something extraordinary every week to keep you. And so that's why, a promiscuous woman will find it harder to settle down. And she'll often get bored. She'll often step out in the relationship and so forth. And I'm not saying men don't do it, but it's proven that men, emotionally speaking, we don't emote the same as women.
Right.
So a man, in many cases, will be very comfortable with the same woman that's bored as shit with him because she's used to so many other men and she's consistently comparing them to those other men, often to the point where they say over 70% of women already know who they're going to replace you with when they're dating you. And that's why the monkey branch has been so effective in those serial monogamous relationships. Typically speaking, when a woman decides that she wants to break up with a man, within 2 weeks, she's already in the arms of another man. So, and so when we start, if we want to go down that path, now let's get back to the video though. Because if we have this concept in our community about grooming. If a grown man is dating a grown woman and there's at least a 10-year gap in their age range, well, what does it say when a multi-billion-dollar organization is sending a message to teenagers? Is that not grooming? I don't know if we can draw the parallels here, but when you start talking about this, and specifically, like Patrick said, this message was for everybody but heterosexual males. And you talk about a propaganda campaign. Well, then you had LGBTQ marches recently within the last year talking about we're coming for your children. You know what I'm saying? After a while, these dots start connecting. You know what I mean? In regards to this type of agenda towards the children. And all these different things, you have all these different groups now trying to find ways into the kindergarten classrooms to have these conversations with children. Why is it so important to put a sexual agenda in front of children? And I'm not even specifying what type of sexual agenda, but just any sexual
overall,
agenda.
Yeah.
Right. Why are there groups trying their damnedest to be influential in regard to a 5-year-old sex life?
Look, when I go into any setting that I go to, first thing I start off with is, if you not thinking about sex and you don't want to have sex, you don't have no desires of having sex, don't have sex. You don't have to have sex because everybody else is having sex. But then if we're going to teach them about sex, we got to do it right. And we have to make sure we spend time on these topics and making sure that people understand the context and understand the information. Like I said, you can't just throw out losing your virginity or having anal sex or something like that. Especially that, you can't just throw it out there like that. But also, one thing that I don't like about the way the video was set up, but it's also based off how society is. But the reason why she wasn't talking to heterosexual men, because it's already the idea, is already the perception, or it's already in place culturally that we're just supposed to go out and conquer the world with our penis. And I spend a lot of time, especially talking to young black men, about slowing down and not sticking your meat in any and everything. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you are obligated to knock down every girl you see. You have to have dick discipline. You know how many men have ruined themselves and are still ruining themselves because of a lack of dick discipline?
Well, I think one of the things, and it's twofold. One, this whole narrative of a double standard that she did bring up, that you were hinting at just now, like that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
Women like men that have sex. That's been confirmed repeatedly over and over and over again. Matter of fact, women are all over their favorite digital therapy site, TikTok, talking about how if a man ain't got no hoes, they ask what's wrong with him.
Right.
If don't nobody want to have sex with you, men know this. If nobody wants to fuck you, then nobody wants to fuck you.
Right.
So that's what, and men are not the same. Go figure. Men and women are different. Who knew? It's almost like God knew what he was doing. Anyways, I'm sorry. God knew what they were doing. Anyways, so but men don't like women that have a lot of sex. Ergo, and therefore, men get pressured to have sex and women get pressured not to. That is important for a variety of reasons. But we can get into that. But then we go back to this pair bonding piece that PC was hitting on and that Joe mentioned on. And I'm going to talk about this briefly because I know we want to go, because there's a lot of shit in this video. It's a lot of shit. And all of it feels like unzipping a colostomy bag. It's funny. We was just talking about that. Anyways, so first off, this notion of casual sex that she's getting at, it's a social construct. It's not. It's totally made up. Biologically, your brain does not differentiate casual sex from intimate partner sex until you've had so much casual sex that intimate partner sex is basically not going to do what it needs to do.
Right.
And so we need to understand, like, there are three hormones. There are multiple hormones at play, but the three major ones: oxytocin, the love hormone, the bonding hormone, vasopressin, and dopamine. When you have sex, you get a surge of a chemical cocktail flooding through your body. For men, it makes you look at this woman, love this woman, and really only have eyes for this woman. That's why when you've been with a chick for a while and you've been piping her down, only her for a while, you stop noticing other women. Other women aren't as attractive anymore. That's so that you can be with this woman to raise a child, pair bonding.